Why do you believe podcasting is such a powerful way?
Podcasting is a really great way to connect with someone.
Where you're at, where you have 3.3 million people.
Now, even though I look at my numbers and things like that, I don't obsess on it. Ask yourself the question like, what is my mission? And will podcasting enable me to reach more people in this way?
Welcome back to the High Performance Human Podcast. Today we're diving into a topic that many of you dream about, perhaps even talk about, but for one reason or another, you haven't quite started. And that is launching your own podcast. Because we all have stories, expertise, or a message that we want to share. But like so many things in life, there's always an invisible barrier preventing us from starting. And it's not the tech, it's not the format, but it's probably something deeper. It's that voice that whispers, who am I to do this? What if I fail? Or I'm not good enough. And here's the truth. These mental blocks aren't just holding you back from podcasting. They're likely showing up in other areas of your life too. And that's why our guest today is the perfect guide to help us navigate both the practical landscapes of podcasting and the inner terrain of self-doubt. And I'm incredibly honored to welcome Johnny Pardoe. He is the host of the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset, which is a top 1% podcast that has captivated over 3.3 million listeners. And what I love about Johnny is he doesn't just talk the talk. He's lived the journey and he has shared his insights on shows like the Vegan Dharma podcast and literally wrote the book on overcoming inner obstacles. That's right. He has wrote and he is the author of The Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset is the mental muscle you can conquer. And it's a guided book that's rooted in his own transformation from self-doubt to profound self-confidence. But what makes Johnny uniquely positioned for today's conversation is that he's also a dedicated podcast mentor, guiding individuals and entrepreneurs through the very process of launching and growing their own audio dreams. So without any further ado, I am so excited to get into what is podcasting, why people should be doing it, and having you here to guide us through all the mental hurdles that we're going to run up against. So Johnny, thank you for being here today. How are you doing today, brother?
Thank you, Cretan, for having me on today. I appreciate you. I'm doing good. Got an exciting schedule lined up tonight, the podcast interviews and the conversation, but it's actually nice and warm in England at the moment, so I'm doing good overall. Thank you, Cretan.
I'm always in a good mood, so excited to get to dissect it with everything I've done in my podcast to kind of get it and get to talk to someone that's where you're at, where you have 3.3 million people downloading, listening in. So congratulations to you for that feat. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate it. It's one of those things that feels good, kind of the impact you make. And yeah, over time, it wasn't the platform I thought I'd blow up on or do really well on, but it's great that it's been able to impact at least one person. But yeah, a few more than that. So it's great to kind of share that, of allow other people to get out there now and share their message like you touched on as well.
I love that. So I kind of want to jump into, for someone that's starting out right now, who maybe has a message or a passion, what initially drew you to wanting to do podcasting? Like, why is that the medium that you chose? And why do you believe podcasting is such a uniquely or powerful way for people to share their voice and build an audience today?
Two kind of parts of the question. So like, how did I get started on the journey? Me personally, I was in this space in sort of 2019 where I was really just like writing books, and I got myself a mentor who was I read one of her books, and then I wanted to get help just writing books and and just writing like fictional books and then personal development books. I was just having fun with it, not bestsellers, but just fun, creativity. And yeah, she kind of helped me onto this whole path of personal growth and got really like interested in it. And then I was like really nervous to put out my first YouTube video. I remember I started a YouTube before I started a podcast, and it was like, well, I'm going to do some research, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And it's like, then I put out my video, and then just got me to launch it at the end. So there was all that
Wow.
going through mine, certainly, of like, oh my God, like, do I dare put a video? And I watch it back, I'm just like, I can look at it now, and I'm like, that's a terrible structure of doing an episode. But I also knew at the time it's called Getting Started, the first episode, and I knew I
Okay.
had to get started to improve. And I got into this this YouTube stuff, and I was getting on social media, and I was kind of just sharing what I was learning and like how I'd overcome like confidence like struggles or self-esteem challenges, things I'd done on my mind, all quite like general. And it wasn't really like, it was reaching a few people, inspiring people. And I started becoming a coach back then. I don't really do coaching now. I do mentorship and podcasting. But yeah, I got to a place where I was like, okay, what other mediums could I do? And then there was like this idea of a podcast. And I thought, that's interesting. And there's some influencer was talking about, it might be like Gary Vee or someone like that was talking about like podcasting. And I'm just like, that's probably a good way to reach people, just like they're listening. And so I just had a go and a play about it. I started getting out there, and it didn't hit many people at first. It was just like a few downloads, friends, maybe family listening to me. Over that, I was just like, I kept going and I kept figuring it out. And then it started really impacting people. And then I saw it grow and grow as I was fine tuning. And it was a really great way to get some good feedback, get coaching clients on board who had like felt they already knew me. And yeah, that's kind of like how I got into it. The second part of your question was like, and that's been my most powerful like business tool in terms of a coaching business, but also impacting people and getting my message out there, the more important thing. And for me, why I think it's a really good opportunity is, well, there's actually just over 500,000 active podcasts out there. There's a lot more podcasts out there, but if you look at the amount of over a million like podcasts out there, but actually active, we're talking like consistently making episodes. That sounds like a lot, but it's not compared to the amount of listeners that are actually listening. And then if you look on social media, there's like billions of users on Facebook and Instagram. I think there's about 2 billion and 2 billion Instagram, maybe 3 billion Facebook. Probably, chop and change, all the time, but or growing. But yeah, like for me, podcasting is a really great way to connect with someone. So they're like being with you, like you're actually in their head, you're educating them in a good way, educating them, helping
Hopefully.
them move forward. Not in that kind of like devil in your ear kind of way, but giving them that guidance. They get to know you, and yeah, just like putting some good information in there. And it's also a great opportunity to meet lots of other people like we're meeting right now, creating like for the first time. You get to build your network, meet cool people, get to do a lot of learning. I've interviewed some cool people like John Demartini, Peter Sage, where I've been able to take like loads of notes, and I'm like, wow, these people, I can learn a lot, help my audience. I'm just a big fan of podcasting, helping people get out there,
So
essentially.
before you got into podcast, were you, because I know you were talking about YouTube and stuff, were you planning on doing podcasting? Were you listening to a lot of podcasts and that's what drove you to be like, okay, yeah, I want to do that as well? Or were you originally saying, you know what, I'm going to do YouTube, I'm going to do video stuff, and then you fell down to podcast?
It was more like kind of what I was aware of. I was putting myself on things I was aware of putting methods out. So I knew YouTube existed. I'd listened to one or two podcasts, but not like massively. And it was never like a big thing for me until I sort of went through 2019 and became aware of it. So it's more that I wasn't like aware or consciously like listening to them. But when I started towards the end of the year listening to some, because there were people I listened to on Facebook or YouTube, and then I discovered these podcasts. I started listening to them on podcasts and becoming more aware of it. It wasn't that I'd never heard of like podcasts pre 2019, but it was more like it's just a concept like out there that I'd never thought about. And then when I
Mhm.
became more aware of them and actually that they're a method to get out there, that's when I started like trialing it and playing about with them.
Before 2019, were you doing more YouTube or not? That you were still just writing books and focused on?
I was more writing pre 2019. Like I was very much sort of just focused on like my career and like sort of like day to day stuff like that. But on the side, I was just having fun, sort of like writing creative books. But it was when I found my mentor, I started getting more into the personal growth world in 2019.
What was the moment that you kind of went from thinking about podcasting to actually doing it?
I think it was that I didn't like. I know some people overthink it. I didn't like really overthink it when it became an idea that I should do. I just happened to have a fair bit of free time over that December, and you really don't need as much time as you think to make a podcast. People always think you need ages, but that's something we can go on to later. But like, it's just like I heard the idea, and then I just started like making podcasts. I already had the YouTube videos, so that's what I started off with. I started putting the YouTube videos as podcasts, so you could just make it
Okay.
into an audio. So it's quite easy to start that way. But yeah, for me, it wasn't anything like special. It was more like, oh, I've got like podcasts are a great thing to do. And then I just started exploring that medium. And then I really wanted it to work out. So I started like understanding what was working, what I could do better. And then it really started to take off and make an impact.
How long did it take for it to start to make impact?
It's around like mid 2020, it started really
So
taking
like
off.
6 months.
Yeah, you're talking like, yeah, 6 months, like around like July, August, when I look back at the date, got all the data and the timelines and stuff in your dashboard. Yeah, I looked at it, I always look at that quite regularly. But when I go back and historically, I do know it took, yeah, about 6, 7 months. And then it was really starting to, we're looking at first, it was like you're getting sort of 10 downloads. And then suddenly, before I knew it, like my show was like hitting up to like 10,000. And then actually
Oh,
from
wow.
there, it went to 100,000 and not like it within a month, but you know, and then it started going to the hundreds of thousands, and then eventually it's got me into the millions mark, which is really cool to kind of see how much
Yeah,
people are listening to it and taking on board, and also the feedback and people thanking me is obviously the bit I really enjoy. So.
for sure. So when you started to come up with your podcast and start putting it out there, what was your quote unquote definition of success? Were you doing it for the downloads, or were you trying to just get one a week or share a specific message or make an impact? Like, I always want to know, like, that 6 months of quote unquote suck where you're not getting the feedback. Like, what was it that was driving you to be like, okay, I only got 10 downloads. Like, this sucks. This is stupid. I'm quitting.
And it's interesting that sometimes when you got success in one area of life, you could actually transfer that to others sometimes. And I forget that myself because like it may be an area where I may be a bit more stuck. I could actually think, oh, that's what I did with podcasting. Now for me, what I did in terms of the podcasting, and I learned this from one of my teachers in the personal growth world, is it wasn't about the outcome of getting X amount of downloads, or like some of us might go on Instagram and we want to get X amount of followers or X amount of money in the bank. But for me, it wasn't about and it doesn't make people like happy necessarily. But for me, it was like the focus was just on like creating and the fun of it. That's
Mm.
honestly what I was focusing. It wasn't like I wasn't looking and improving and seeing what I could tweak and researching, because I was, and that's what like helped me. But for me, the outcome was just having the fun on creating. Now, even though I look at my numbers and things like that, I don't obsess on it, even if it like drops down some week, which is going to happen. But like now, my just like the outcome is just on creating, having fun on the creativity. So that was my outcome and my focus. And then with the research and the fine tuning, grew as a result as well.
You were going into it, it was just, it sounds like obviously if you're writing books, you clearly are a creative person. I mean, I only say that because
Yeah.
I'm from the opposite side as being an engineer and doing aerospace and all this, like numbers and facts, like that's my comfort zone. The creative stuff isn't something I think and maybe we could talk about this, but I feel like every person has some creativity. I have 3 kids, and just being around so many kids my whole life, like every kid that will sing, dance, they have some creative stuff in them. But I think as they grow older, they just stop practicing and honing in on that. So they forget that they even have that. Because I even know for myself, doing all this engineering, doing all this non creative stuff, that now that I'm coming back and forcing myself to write and do stuff like, oh, I do kind of enjoy this stuff. And for me, what really propels me and drove me to start doing my podcast was from doing all my coaching of all these people. Like, I don't want people to have to pay me to learn what I know. Like, I want everyone to know how to love themselves for who and what they are today without having to
Mm,
pay. So, because I know what it was like to have everything and feel numb and nothing and be willing to give it all up. And
mm,
that's really kind of how I change is like, I will do anything in my power to help one person not have to feel the way that I used to feel about myself. And so for me, that was my drive of like, okay, I don't care about the numbers. I don't care about anything. Like, can I put something out that's going to help Creighton from 5 years ago or 10 years ago that
mm,
his life looked perfect on paper, but he swore something was wrong with him, swore that this is a useless life. Like, so that's what drives me on a weekly basis to continue to put out something. What do you say is the best thing that
mm,
helps that person continue to show up? I mean, it's the
mm,
same thing we do in the gym. When it sucks to show up in the gym as that version of yourself, when you don't feel like waking up early, when you don't feel like being kind to your significant other, like we all have either some identity or some narrative that we pull up to force
mm.
us to do the thing when we don't feel like it.
For me, like what I'm a big fan of is systems. But like
Mm.
systems, I believe we've all got like systems, but like in different, sometimes our systems may or may not work, depending on what we're doing. So me, like with podcasting, it's really important to establish some kind of like system that you're going to be able to stick to going forward. If it's
Mhm.
like suddenly like, okay, we're going to get you launched, we're going to get a few episodes together and do that, and then just like make them when you want. That's not like a sustainable system, but it's like, okay, right. So this is the first part of my answer. But if we aim for like first 6 episodes recorded, we're going to get you like launch. We're going to pick a plan. So a plan is also really important at the start. Like, okay, we're going to pick a date. This is the first thing I say to someone: pick a date a few weeks from now. And this is what I say to listeners. They're thinking no more than 4 weeks. I don't think it will take you to launch. I work with clients who are like, we're going to do it in 2, and it's like, yeah, okay, go. So like, it really doesn't. It shouldn't take like 6 weeks max, but ideally 4 weeks. It's going to take you to launch. I think 6 weeks is way too long from an idea to that. You can do it easily if you
Mhm.
put a few hours a week in just to get your episodes out. Having a plan in place, and then the second thing, and I said it was the first thing, is like having a system that you can be like, okay, and then my process is going to be every 2 weeks, I'm going to sit down and plan my episodes. And then I'm going to interview people on the Monday, or if you're doing guest ones. And if you're doing solos, it might be the same day you're planning them and then you edit them and everything like that. Getting that into some system, that's a really important thing. So then when you think, oh, I've got to do podcasting, it's another thing to do. But then actually, if you're making one episode a week to begin with, and then you realize you need like 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours every 2 weeks, it might not seem that much like when you look at it, but in the mind it's going like, oh my god, I've got to do so much. But when we get it down on paper as a plan, the first thing, and then we get a system, that's what I find really enables people to keep going, and I keep going. The next part like comes more into the psychological elements, and yeah, it's like making sure that your podcast, as well as it obviously being something that is a genuine problem or something people want, but it's also something that's got to light you up, and you can add like a
Mhm.
variety in as well, I believe. So, you know, you, for example, there might be something on real estate, for example. Real estate might be a popular topic on podcasting. I'm not saying it is or isn't at the moment, but let's say it is. And then you're like, okay, real estate's a really popular podcast, but like you're someone who finds it really boring and dull, but you're just doing it for the sake of it being popular. That's not going to maintain you to keep doing it. So,
Yeah.
it's got to be something that excites you as well. And if you have to slightly tweak the subject as you go, that's okay as well. But yeah, those are the three main things. Having a clear plan with a clear like date, and then having a system that you can maintain so it's manageable in terms of your time and it doesn't seem overwhelming when you can see it. And then the third thing is just something you love to talk about that's going to keep
Yeah.
you going and you lit up as well.
I love that. I'm a huge advocate. The best way to battle confusion is with clarity. So I love systems and processes because I feel like when we leave it up to our brain, it will tell us all the terrible, all the negative, it'll create this crazy narrative to try to keep us safe. I love the idea of getting clarity of how you're going to implement it. And then even going down to like, why does this matter? And I know for me, when I quit my engineering job, it
Mm,
came down to me realizing like, what is the thing that I would do for free? Because the only way that I was
mm,
showing up as an engineer for 13 years is because they were paying me. If they stopped paying me on the weekend, I was not studying engineering. On the weekends, I was studying psychology, human behavior, like neuroscience. Like, I was just so enamored and fascinated with humans. What is the logic we use to make decisions and define our reality, all these things. And
mm,
so it wasn't until I was helping someone else that they're like, why don't you do this? I was like, do what? And like, coach people. I was like, oh no, that's crazy. Like, how would I do that? But the writing was on the wall. Like my whole life, I've always loved to learn stuff and I love to teach. So I think going to what you're saying is so important. And we kind of talked about it at the beginning before we started hit record of like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I
yeah.
think there's so much behind the idea of like, what are you studying? What is the thing that you love to do if no one's paying you? Like, that's probably what you're really passionate about. So
I
why
love that.
not share? And I think one of the other things that I noticed in my life is I think a lot of us get in our head, who am I to teach? Who am I to do this? But what
Mm,
helped me, especially just starting to go on social media and start to post stuff, I was like, well, who am I? I'm not, Tony Robbins or these big gurus or whoever. Like, who am I? And I was like, you know what? The best way that got me to start was thinking of Creighton, 2 weeks ago, or 2 months ago, or 2 years ago. What can I teach him? Because I know I'm further ahead than that version. So if I just started to create my message for that, it alleviated a lot of that imposter syndrome.
I love what you said about what would you do for free. I think that's a real quality question that you've asked us. A very good coaching question, coaching question. Tell you that. But yeah, yeah, the trying to get out there and like, who am I? That's often a very, very common one. What you talk about, like teaching someone from your version of you 5 years ago, or even your example there, created for like 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, is also a powerful impact you can make. Yeah, I totally agree on that. I love that.
So what do you think are the biggest, mental blocks, fears, or limiting beliefs that you see people holding themselves back from starting to get into podcasting?
I would sum it up. Like, I'm not saying there's probably other versions of these, but there's probably three main ones that I see. I'd say the three main ones are the time. It's like, how do I have time to make a podcast? Okay, it kind of goes
Mm,
back to the plan and the systems that we talked about, and I was kind of giving a bit of a solution for that. It's like, wow, I'm gonna have to be doing 15 hours a week of podcasting. No, you're not. And it's like, I'm a believer. Like, I know this is very personal growth cliche, but I'm a believer that it serves me well. That there's always time for the priorities, like what you prioritize. And for me, sharing my message on a medium that needs more podcasters out there, and there's lots of listeners, was a high priority for me to impact people's lives and what I wanted to talk about. And I could always find a few hours a week to do that, or every 2 weeks, depending how you make your system. So that's a big one. I'd say the other one is like it usually comes around the words, the fears of like tech and all these things. Do I need a studio? What mic do I get? What editing software do I need? Do I hire an editor? And then you suddenly got all these questions. Well, it's actually what I personally believe, and what done me justice, is just like a mic and a laptop, and then I use iMovie, even as simple as using iMovie for my editing, right? There's Riverside and other tools I've explored, but yeah, the tech is certainly one. It's like I've got to do all this, or just like, oh, there's so much to do. Um, but that's like with everything, like anything you start, like learning to drive, definitely starting a business, learning a new skill. There's always that, like a rocket taking off. There's always like a few things to do, and then it's like takes off. Then it's kind of like in motion. But actually, podcasting, there's a lot less to do, I personally believe, than people realize. They think there's a million things to do, whilst there's, just a few essentials really need to do to begin. And then the other one is like what we talked about is the doubting their voice. It's like, it's very common. It's like, who am I to do this? Is anyone going to listen to me when there's other podcasts out there on this? Will people like actually listen? What if someone like criticizes me? So that kind of like inner critic voice that like pulls us back from doing something that's different from what we used to be doing. Those, if I was to sum it up, would be the three main ones. Maybe you can resonate with them.
To be honest, I didn't want to get into podcasts, but my true vision was I wanted to do YouTube. Like I wanted to do YouTube. I wanted to be on YouTube because it's searchable, all the other stuff. And I was like, well, I'll dub it and I'll put it on as a podcast too.
Yeah.
But what I found, and I don't have a problem being on camera, like it wasn't any fear of that, but just editing video and getting the lighting right and all this, like there was so many more, and I'll go back to engineering, but there were so many more variables that I had to take care of to do online video stuff. Going back to your systems and processes, I couldn't get it out fast enough. I couldn't edit the video. I hate video editing. Like, so every time I'd record something and I'd have to go to try through and edit it, I was like, no, this is so miserable. And so I was like, okay, well, again, and this is what I love, clarity over confusion of like, okay, why do I really want to do YouTube? And for me, it was like I said, I wanted to help someone out there that feels numb and is ready to throw everything away because they think that they're broken. So, okay, if that's what I really want, is YouTube the only way to do this? Because YouTube's not working. I'm trying to do the video, I'm trying to do the editing, and I just don't have the time, I don't have the passion, whatever. Like, okay, no, like, but what do I need to do? I need to talk to this person. So it's like, okay, what is the least friction? What's the smallest barrier to entry? Like, I just need to talk. And so actually, for if anyone's listened to my podcast before, like majority of my episodes are recorded in a closet, which is amazing because it's so good at dampening the sound. But it's so fast and easy for me to go. I just get my phone, I get my mic, and I go in a closet and I hit record and I just start talking. If I make a mistake, I just scroll back a little bit and start re-recording over it. Like the editing is so fast and easy that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier to do. There was so much less resistance. So that's actually kind of how I was able to stay consistent and moving forward in it. What would you say to that person that is asking, is podcasting what I should do? How would you help them identify to turn that to either a yes or a no?
Me, it wouldn't be a case of just be like, yeah, you must like podcast. It's kind of like, what's your bigger like focus? What's your like bigger mission, if you want to use that word? What is like your bigger aim? And if it's like often like the answer's like yes, it does align with them. If it's someone who's like, right, I really want to get out there and help, like maybe they want to help like mums who are just gone through like pregnancy and that, or it might be like helping people who have like gone through a business challenge, or it could be helping people with relationships. If you're like, right, I want to get out there and impact that person, and I really want to like share my voice and impact as people as many ways as like possible. Well, like you might have explored ask yourself, like, what ways have you explored? Um, is that working? And then, yeah, I'd invite you to ask, do you feel like the kind of person you want to serve is listening to a podcast? Are they going to be there? Are they going to be impacted by your message? So yeah, just thinking about like, what's your bigger mission? Like, who is it you want to impact? Why do you want to impact them? And actually, is podcast a good vehicle to do so? Are they listening to it?
Where do you find that to be a good example that podcasting wouldn't be a good medium for that?
I mean, I can't think of
Okay.
anything off the top of my head, but I also don't like to force, like, I personally believe it like serves most cases. Like, if you're in a like business that's like absolutely like killing it and making money, you've probably got time to resource it out for someone else to like do your podcasting. If you're on a case of really struggling to meet impact people, get out there, and social media is drowning you out, I would propose that like podcasting is a great way to do that. But again, like as a coach, it's always about asking those questions, not telling someone you must podcast, you must do this. But for me, like, I just see it as like a number of ways. Obviously, yeah, if you're crushing it in business for a meet, like some people like have these specialisms and platforms, like someone's a LinkedIn beast, they're really good with like LinkedIn and they're really, really
Mhm.
good. You know, if they're doing really well in business that way, maybe they can talk on a podcast about like how LinkedIn's helped them. But yeah, I would suggest ask yourself the question like, what is my mission? And will podcasting enable me to reach more people in this way?
So, I mean, to me, it'd be just, do you want to impact people? If the answer
Mm,
is yes, then
mm,
podcast is a yes. Maybe if you're showing like spreadsheets and formula and it's a lot of visual, then yeah, unless you're really good at
mm.
being a descriptive writer, then it might be hard to do podcasting. But other than that, I think, yeah, I can't imagine anything better to help someone to talk and help. And this is one of everybody needs someone to be out there podcasting. There's so many people in this world that feels like there's something wrong with them, that they're broken, that they can't figure something out. And so they're doubting themselves.
Mm,
So I think it's our duty to, if we've overcome some trial, tribulation, something like that, like we can be that for that person to help them get over whatever it is that they're struggling with at this specific moment in time. Like, I think it's a great way for humanity to pay it forward, even if no one else is listening or whatever. And what I love about all this is like, this is recorded. Like, I think it's going to be so cool for my kids. I have three and one on the way. So, like, for them to get to go back through and listen to, like, oh, what was daddy talking about? Or what, like, for them to get to know me more, or maybe my grandchildren, whatever. I also wanted to ask you this question, because you've been doing this for so long. Because I think that, at least for me coming in, of like, okay, I have to get it perfect. Like, I need to know what it's going to be forever.
mm.
So, how many times have you pivoted or changed? Because you've been doing this for years. Like, have you pivoted around what your message is, what you wanted to talk about, or from day one, did you have it perfect and like, okay, this is what it's always going to be. This is what my format's going to be. Like, can you go
Mm.
into that?
I'd say like the format and the structure and the amount of times I put things out and, guest versus solo episodes has changed. Ultimately, the mission has stayed the same from the beginning in terms of being the self-esteem and confidence mindset, in terms of obviously helping people with those areas. I actually released a second podcast, the Men's Mental Health podcast, particularly aimed at men as well, like recently as well. So that's kind of slowly growing as well. So I started that one. But yeah, like with the main podcast, that was more what I've done is kind of like taken on board lots of like audience feedback, whether I'm talking to them on Instagram or whether I'm just seeing some of the comments in the episodes as well. And then when I'm seeing in the stats, obviously use the data, what's doing really well, like making maybe more on that content. And then over time, I've actually started to make more and more guest episodes because I feel like that's given me more enjoyment, whilst at the beginning, because that's really important, like we're talking about, the enjoyment and energy you get from it. So there was a point where I'm just like wanting to share everything. I'm going through such like this like growth journey. I'm like, oh, I went through this, I want to share everything. But then over time, like I'm like, actually, I really enjoy interviewing people and learning from people and honing
Mm.
in on my questioning skills and giving a variety to the audience. So yeah, that's changed over time, like introducing more and more guests. And yeah, depending where I was in life, like I've increased the amount of episodes I've done each week. So I do 5 at the moment. Started off with a
5 a
couple.
week?
Yeah, I do 5 a week, but some of them are guests. So yeah, that's good
Yeah.
fun.
So if you actually find the thing that you're passionate about, you will become an expert in that and get paid so much more because you're doing it for free. You will do it so many more hours than if you're only doing it for money. Because as an engineer, after those 40 hours, I was done. I wasn't trying to learn. I wasn't trying to get better. I was literally doing the minimum to make the money. But when you
Mm.
find the thing that you're passionate about, no one has to pay you. Like, this is what I'm just doing. So you're going to get so much better at it so much faster because it's what you, like you're saying. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy that you're doing 5. And you're like, dude, I love this. It's so much fun. Like, you would almost have to pay me to not do 5 episodes a week.
I love what you said about like doing stuff for free. I mean, personally, you're a coach, and I can see like you're a brilliant coach because like you're very analytical, you ask good questions, very personable. And for me, like coaching, I did that, and I did get like help people, and they gave me some really great feedback, and it was great to see their results. But for me, when I did that, it was a little bit more. I felt like I was draining my energy a bit, and it wasn't the people. It just I wasn't cool to do it. Whilst you might get
Mm.
a different kind of energy from me from doing it, just like by coaching people and working. And yeah, like I'd always want to deliver and make sure they got their value and they had some transformation, of course. But it was like completely different from me going on a podcast interview or creating an episode, different kind of energy.
That's amazing. So I'm curious, when you're making your podcast, like what are you trying to get your listeners to feel or experience from your show? I know you said you've had the same mission statement, and maybe that's involved in your mission statement, but like what is it that you're hoping at the end of the episode that your listener got to feel or got to experience?
Me, I'm a big fan, and I have this like certain formula I follow, particularly on like solo episodes that I learned from a great guy in the personal growth space, who I actually worked for a little bit in sales, but he like I want them to take action on what they're listening. That's like what I
Mm,
really want them to feel like there's something they need to shift because they would, people typically listen to podcasts. I have, and other people have told me because they're looking for a problem to be solved, some kind of like little bit of a shift. Sometimes it's educational, don't get me wrong, but like the kind of podcasts I make, it's usually they want to like shift something a little bit. So what I want them to come away with is like taking one kind of action. So
mm,
I like to challenge a little bit on the podcast. I'm like, what are you going to take away today? And it's things like you even have to interrupt them. They can like feel good, be like asking them, a tough question on the podcast. But I like them to take away like one actionable each time that they're actually going to use rather than just being like, oh, that was a really good inspirational podcast. So yeah, that's my impact each time. And then I get some good feedback. It's like, oh, what was that exercise again? I love that when someone's like, oh, just want a clarification of that exercise. I'm like, just give me your email address. I'll give you like the whole doc. And it's like, because I just love people actually taking action on it.
Yeah, isn't that so crazy that I think that so many people think that I don't know why that because we're talking that it's almost that it's, and I'm obviously sure it's a bigger thing for you because of your status and your success that you've had in your podcast, that you're unapproachable. That, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to send that at him. He's not going to respond. I don't want to bother him. But I think they forget like the whole function, the purpose of us doing these sort of things is we want that. Like I mean, realistically, everything we do in our life is for a feeling or an experience that we want to feel. So I think it's so
Absolutely.
awesome when people do share of like, hey, this inspired me, or hey, this made me move, or hey, can you help me out a little bit more? Like, at least for me, and it sounds like you're the same thing. That's what we're doing this for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you love to hear people, and even when I was doing coaching, and then some people like would come to me and be like, "I've been doing all the exercises, but I just wanted to work closely together with you." And there's some brilliant people I really work with, like really committed. But yeah, just like I'm doing the exercises, it's helping me so much, but I want to go further. That is the impact we wanna we wanna make. Just feel like they're doing something, making a shift.
Humanity is capable of when we finally realize who we want to be instead of like we're kind of talking about wearing a mask our entire life of pretending to be something that we're not.
Yeah, 100%. I do allow myself to really go into those emotions, and yeah, sometimes getting to that truth and the root really helps. And like I like to, we were talking before the show, but like, I like to be as real as possible in like the show. I don't, I'm not one for like saying this is how to become a billionaire, and I'm not, I'm not a millionaire. So it's like I don't like to read that out. I like to be very personable. I don't like to be like this is how to have a successful 5-year marriage. Then I'm not married. So it's like I do like to be very like personable, and I think that's when human beings can really like connect to you and relate to you as well, while sharing, something you've overcome as well to help them.
Yeah, I love that the power of wanting to be authentic. And I have that too of like I don't even share about I've coached people with real estate before as kind of how I started with coaching before I got into like more of the life high performance coaching stuff. But even me, I was always so hesitant to say like, oh yeah, I'm a multimillionaire in my real estate portfolio and you can be too because that's not true. And so I had such a hard time saying, hey, if you do what I did, you can become a multimillionaire too. That's not true because you have to have a six-figure income and you have to have a stable relationship and you have to, like, there's so many variables that allowed me to do that. You can't just do these three things. Like your credit score has to be a certain amount so that you can qualify for loans and you have to be having this much just like, does that make sense? There's so many
Yeah.
things below the surface so I would be hesitant to tell people like, oh, all you have to do is these three things. And that's one of the things that I do and pride myself in my coaching. I never say just go do this because it's never just that easy. There's so many things below the surface of your identity, your beliefs, your habits, your systems, everything that you're talking about that's going to hold you back. Like if we go, I mean, it might not be as big of a deal for you guys over in Europe, but over here in the States, like everybody knows exercise and diet, but no one does it.
Mm.
So it's not about knowing what to do. It's getting deeper into the identity stuff is really what's holding you back. I want to make sure that we at least maybe can have a couple action steps. Let's say that there's that person that they're feeling called, that they know what they're passionate about, they know what they would do for free. What would you say is maybe the 2 or 3 steps that they need to do to actually launch their podcast to get it up and going?
Okay, so they're like clear on what, yeah, they want to do.
In
Um,
theory, I mean, let's
yeah,
start at the beginning because
yeah.
even when I started, and this is after, I mean, I've done coaching for over 5 years now. So, like, even starting, I'm still not certain of what it is my niche should be. I'm not certain of how many times a week. I'm not certain how long like, there's so much uncertainty. So, could you tell that person that has an idea, how would you push them to actually take action and go launch despite having certainty?
Coming back to the point of certainty, the only certainty I've learned, and I'm always practicing it and having to shape it with life, that is the only certainty is really you can have in yourself, because things are going to change and you may go down a different direction. Things may happen, things may show up in your life. But yeah, having that like certainty in yourself is a key thing. But in terms of starting a podcast, I would obviously ask the first original question what we were talking about earlier, but like, okay, does podcasting align with you making an impact? Do you want to make an impact? And therefore, will podcasting enable you to do that? Great, okay. And then the second thing I would suggest is making a decision to commit first, and then figuring it out. It's really like coming from me. It's really not as complicated as you may think. I think that's a life general thing, and I've certainly been guilty of it, of like overcomplicating things in my head. Podcasting is really not that complicated. There are some things that are a lot more complicated out there. that you might need a bit more time. But yeah, picking a date, um, pushing you like,
So
4
deadline,
weeks.
come up with a
Yeah,
deadline.
giving a deadline a few weeks out. Like I'm going to say like 4 weeks max. So you commit and then tell people my podcast is coming out
Mm,
then. So
I
making
love that.
that commitment, it's going to be on that. And then it's about alongside that, it's like understanding actually what is, who is the person I'm wanting to impact, and therefore what am I going to call it? So it's like, right, I'm going to be targeting this person, this is their problem, and what can I call it? And I'm a big fan of making the name as simple as possible rather than complicated and clever and fancy, just because people are looking for simplicity, they're looking for problems and certain
Right.
things. They're not, I've seen so many people go down the route of podcasts like, oh, this is a really original fancy name, and their friends like, oh, that's really clever, but it's like their listeners like not looking for that thing at all. It's like it's just in their head. So make it simple, understanding who you're talking to. And then of course, like just getting your episodes recorded, progress not perfection that you talked about earlier, Creighton, and just making the episodes. Most people I find don't like their voice when they first hear it. It's just something when you do
Oh, I
more, you'll get
remember
used
that.
to
Yeah.
it. You'll get used to it the more you do. Honestly, I
Yeah.
really didn't like my voice when I heard myself on YouTube the first time. I was like, ugh.
Same.
Um, you're the same. But yeah,
Oh,
getting
same.
the fifth main thing I would say is it's about like taking action but doing like the mental work at the same time. So for me, I've been in that place where you're just like, right, I've got to do all the mental work and get myself ready, and then taking no action. And this could apply to any area of life. Um, and I'm just like, okay, right, I'm working on it, I'm working on thinking about it, but actually you won't progress if you don't do anything. But I've
Mm,
also been in that space where I've done something and like I'm taking action, but actually I'm not mentally talking to myself in the right way, looking after myself. So, in the fifth step, I would say make sure you're working through those blocks. If like limiting beliefs are coming up, having a look at them, being aware of them, working through them, whilst at the same time taking some kind of action to move forward, like making more episodes, getting yourself out there. But those two in parallel, for me, have been a really big impact.
yeah, I love that. And I think that's so important what you say of having the awareness of notice what's going on in your mind, but not letting it actually dictate your actions. Like I
Mm,
always tell people, like feelings aren't facts. Like, yes, you feel it, but you get to decide, are you going to let that define your next step? Or you can say, I'm afraid, but I'm still going to do it anyway. So I love that
yeah.
idea of being conscious of the narrative, whatever's going on, but still taking steps instead of saying, oh, okay, well, because I'm afraid, because I'm this means I'm supposed to stop. But that's not the case. You're never going to get
Mm,
where you want.
100%.
And so, what advice do you think that you can give to someone about finding maybe their unique voice or ensuring that their message connects with their ideal audience or their listener?
Yeah, I believe everyone's got like their own like unique perspective because we're all like individual. But yeah, understanding I think it's really important to you to have like an emotional connection to who you're speaking to, not just like, oh, that would be like I was kind of touching on it earlier, but like not just like when I used the real estate example, not just be like, oh, that would be a good bunch of people to talk to. Like, here's a trend I've seen. Just this is an observation. A lot of people going like, I help leaders, and I don't know what that means half the time when people say that, but it's like
Right.
in terms of leaders, and it's just like, oh, leaders is a good industry to go after, but it's like well, you got to have an emotional connection to that person who you're talking to. Like for me, and it can change, by the way. Like my intention was to help, like me 5 years ago. Like I know you talk about through my confidence issues. That was the start of mine, and therefore I had this unique voice of speaking to like young guys. And I was like 28 when I started it, just going on 29 when I started my podcast. So it was just like what drove me was to really help something I was passionate about, which is like men who are going through like these challenges. And therefore that gave me my own unique voice to like speak to that because I had like passion, I had connection speaking to it. So I think that always helps with the unique voice. really finding something that's like meaningful to you that you want to connect to. And then, yeah, it just, in terms of like unique voice, what I would say also to that helped me is like studying good podcasters, but not trying to be them. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
listening to like, I've actually met like Les Brown in person once, which was really cool, but like might listen to
Wow.
like a Les Brown out there, or Joseph McClendon was a guy I worked for, I was still connected with. He's Tony Robbins speaker. But like these guys are like the best in the world at like speaking. I'll watch them, I'll observe, and I'll be like, okay, I could learn this. But don't looking at them like, oh, they're better than me. And that's a general comparison thing as well. Don't be like, oh, they're so good, I'm not. Just using what works for you, maybe learning, and yeah, just having that true like passion behind it of who you're connecting to.
I love that. So let me ask you this on you doing this 5 times a week. Like, is there anything that you do to make yourself commit on a daily basis on those days that you don't feel like podcasting 5 days a week, or every day you feel it?
Well, actually, it's interesting. So, my self-esteem and confidence mindset podcast, I do like more batching. So it's like I'll get the guests and they record like throughout my week. So then I've got like a set time where I like will record maybe this. I record the solo episodes. I'll edit. So I've got a very simple process. And even when I don't quite feel as energetic, I know it's like a must for me. It's not like a should. And I also have like an accountability partner whereby I have a load of targets each week. So that helps me. But for me, I just like always attach the fun and the outcome. So that always helps me move through it. But things in life I don't enjoy as much. I make them as simple as possible, like you could do with a podcast process, and not overwhelm myself with too many musts to do as well at the same time. Um, but yeah, with my other podcast that I've recently started on men's mental health that I'm very strong on, I make that in particular. What I like to do is, for me, that's just something I do daily, and it's just something I feel, I get very excited about because I'm attached to the subject very, very closely.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, like I would say, keep it a simple system, but yeah, also something that kind of gets you that energy and is connected to your heart as well to keep you going.
I love that. And so for someone that's starting, how much time do you think they need to, would you say that they need to allocate it in a day, or can they spread it out over a week?
Yeah, I'd say over a week you could spread it. Like I typically see when I'm like starting with someone, the beginning few weeks are going to be a few more hours because you're doing things like getting your cover designed, you're just writing your description, which really with AI does, don't get AI to do everything for you because you want to be a human, of course. But there's tools out there that are going to help you speed up the process. Is my main point. But like typically it's like 5 6 hours a week to begin with, and then as you're like creating stuff and you're creating episodes, if you want to start off with 2 3 episodes a week, maybe it'll probably be a little bit longer. But if you're just starting off with one episode a week, 5 hours a week is going to be fine, and just spreading that across the week. And then it's about building that into a system. Are you going to do new episodes, make 2 every 2 weeks? Are you going to do make 4 every month? Are you going to do one a week? And then that might be a couple of hours a week. It might be a few hours every 2 weeks. It might be a few more hours every month. Yeah, that's usually what I see when people
Do you recommend someone to come in trying to do multiple at the beginning, or would you say, just get your first four for the month, whether you want to do it weekly or bi-weekly? Um, I guess yeah, I'm trying to ask, is there certain people that come in that you're like, yeah, you should do 5 a week from the get-go?
I wouldn't recommend it personally. I'm a big fan of starting small and consistent and trying to do much. I'm a person who's obviously podcasted for years and he's built up to that over time. Like do you know John Lee Dumas, the podcaster? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had him on once and had a one to
Mm-hmm.
one with him in this thing. He was doing like 7 a week, but he built
Yeah.
up to that, and they were all like guests and sometimes a repeat from the past. But I think it's yeah, he was doing like 7 a week. But yeah, like I would recommend starting with like even 5, even possibly 3 a week to begin with. Like one a week's good. Ideally, like I like to see one a week. I know you said one every 2 weeks, but I prefer like one a week just to be like that consistent each week. Um,
Mm,
and yeah, just like building that, getting into flow, and then you can start seeing actually this is fun. I'm getting into flow.
yeah.
This is what I'm enjoying. Then you can start like adding more on as you like. And it's okay if you change the frequency from time to time. Just don't change the frequency every week because else the listener will get confused. So
Mm.
yeah.
No, I love that. Yeah.
Don't go
And
what I mean by that is don't go from like week one you're doing like one episode a week, the next week you're doing 3 a week, and then you're doing 5 a week, and then you're going back to like 2 a week. Yeah, that will just confuse them. So there's got to be some kind of consistency. But if like you go down a few months on the line, you're doing 1 a week, you're like, oh, I'm going to move it up to 2 a week. That's what I would suggest.
when would you recommend someone to start paying attention to the numbers? Do you think they should start looking at it at the beginning, or do you have a time frame like, hey, I don't even want you to look at your numbers until you've been consistent for X number of months. You haven't earned the right to try to fix it until you've actually proved that, like going back to what you're saying, you have the systems and process to be consistent. Now let's tweak that.
Yeah, it can be a little bit like in your first one, you're like, I've been there, you're like, oh, I'm wanting hundreds of downloads for my first one or thousands of downloads. Um, like I'm okay personally with people checking like their numbers, but not obsessively and not that being a determination for whether they're going to continue. So I make that like very clear with them. So it's like if you want to check your numbers and you've done a few weeks worth of it or a couple of weeks and you're like, okay, which episode did better? Oh, that's interesting. That one did better than that one. That one's done really well. Yeah, by all means, like be curious. You can see maybe at that point, like who's listening, male or female, or the gender you identify with, like where they're listening from. I think that's good. Like just out of curiosity, though, for like improving. But not in a. But as long as it's not from that energy of like fear of like I've got to be doing really really well right now because that's going to put you off. So it's
Hmm.
the intention behind checking numbers. I would say.
I like that. I like that idea of getting awareness of your frame. Like, okay, cool.
Mm,
Am I going to numbers to try to validate whether I should keep moving forward?
mm,
Or am I going in with the mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm curious. How can I get some improvements or how can I get better on this? But
mm.
if you're going to it for it to tell you the answers of like, am I good enough, all this, then maybe you shouldn't be going looking at your numbers at that moment. Your state is not confident enough to go in. So I like that
Yeah,
idea.
sure. In this day and age,
Cool.
I know that's tricky because we're kind of conditioned to that, unfortunately. But
Oh,
yeah,
amen
just
to that. It's so hard. But again, if you and this is something that, I implore everyone that's listening of like notice throughout the day, where are you coming from? Are you coming from a place of scarcity of like, I need something or someone else to tell me who and what I am? Or are you coming from a place of power of knowing who and what you are, and then you go out? But so many of us are going around letting everything and everyone tell us who we're supposed to be, if we're good enough, whatever it is. So,
yeah.
yeah. Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. What is it that you're currently working on? I know you said you have another podcast for men's health. Is it mental health? Is that what it is, or what is it that you're currently working on that has you pretty excited?
Yeah, so I've got there's the self-esteem and confidence mindset, which is what I've done for years, and I release 5 each week currently, which is really really good fun. With all sorts of great guests I get to have on and talk to. But yeah, the men's mental health's a little bit different. I've tried something, I'm always curious, I'm always creative. It's a little bit like I've got a structure and a certain way of using like words and format with the self-esteem and confidence mindset that I know is kind of like helps with podcast growth. Whilst the men's mental health one it's very raw and very real. There's no mask, there's no filters. But yeah, it's a topic that's very close to my heart, having gone through a lot of challenges myself. knowing lots of men go through challenges, and there's often these filters I personally put up on myself, and other guys have told me about. So that's very much me just auditing, well, not auditing, but like journaling my day out and just talking about, oh, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Oh, I felt good today, and I was doing this. It's been a bit of a challenge today. So yeah, that's just my
Wow.
other podcast, which is just again, it's just good fun to do. Yeah.
Awesome. And for anyone that's listening and feels called to get into podcasting, is that something that I know you have a mentorship. Is that something that they can reach out to you to get help with?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, on my social media is probably the best place to reach out to me. Johnny C. Pardoe, Instagram, Facebook. But yeah, on my socials, I give some tips around podcasting at the moment. Um, if people want like just even like a plan template and a quick like 15-20 minute chat, that's something I currently offer. But yeah, like obviously if you want to like do a like quick launch, have the hand holding, and then kind of like you need to do this, this, and this, and me to give you that support outside of calls, as well as the one-to-ones. That's something I offer. Limited basis because it takes up obviously a lot of time, and I really want to give people my dedicated focus when I'm helping them. But yeah, that's something I offer as well. But plenty of resources. I've also got a YouTube series that I'm going to be releasing as well, just in terms of how to get started for free as well.
Oh, that's exciting. And what's your YouTube channel? Is it your name as well, or?
Yeah, just my name as well. They're all Johnny C. Pardo. I
Okay.
only put the C in it for my middle name because Instagram didn't let me have
Oh,
Johnny Pardo for some reason. But yeah, they're all Johnny C. Pardo. So
okay.
yeah,
That's funny because mine are actually my initials CJ, so we're
CJ.
inverted.
Love it.
Awesome, brother. Well, is there
Thank you.
anything that you feel called to share that we haven't talked about, or anything that you want to mention to anyone that's listening at this moment before we break?
The final thing I would say, whether it is podcasting you to share your voice with, or just getting out there and meeting more people, or putting yourself on video, or expressing yourself, is just a tip I really want to give. And because I was talking to some people at personal growth events around this recently, and it surprised me, didn't surprise me how much of us have this fear of like, oh, what if I put myself out there or being seen, and what if I get rejected if I speak up? And what I noticed that I did right many years ago, because I used to be terrified to even say my name, was focus on the feeling of feeling good, of like how good it'll be to put yourself out there, even if it's like a 30-second video, or you speak up, or you meet someone, rather than the fear of, oh, what if they say this about me? What if this goes wrong? What if I stutter? Because that's often what I find people have to focus on like the fears of the
Mm.
things going wrong, rather than actually feeling good about expressing yourself and being yourself. So that's what I would suggest. And at the end of the day, people really don't actually care that much if you like stutter or say something. We exaggerate it in our head, but yeah, focus on like the outcome, the feeling good. If you, whether that's podcasting, put yourself out there, meeting new people. That'd be the final point I want to end with.
I love that. Yeah, it's so funny how if we're left to our own devices, we are always default to what if it doesn't work? But what if it does work? Like, why don't we default to that? It's so crazy how we've conditioned ourselves. So I love
Yeah,
that, man.
crazy.
Well, bro, thank you so much for your time. I want to go check out your new podcast as well and listen to that and see what's on inside your mind on a daily basis. It might inspire me to do something a little more raw and unedited on my side. So that I'm really
Awesome.
excited to go hear that. So anyway, bro, appreciate you so much. I hope you have an
Thank you.
amazing day and I look forward to connecting later.